Hello, Ankur. Thanks for joining the conversation. Glad to
Hey
have
Pavan.
you, and I'm very, very excited about what's the conversation about and how it is going to unfold. So, why don't you first introduce yourself a bit, and then let's jump into the conversation.
Sure. No, thank you, Pavan. Really excited to be here. I've been following your content on both LinkedIn and YouTube.
Thank you.
A bit about me. So I am from Faridabad. You know, pretty much the standard combination of engineering and MBA, followed by management consulting. Most of my career has actually been in management consulting, split across BCG and McKinsey, with a short stint in between at Paytm, where I was leading a few of their business categories. So really excited to be here and to see how this conversation flows.
Ankur, first of all, I want to jump into and explore how was your experience working at Paytm and also in consulting, because not many people have
Mhm.
this combination of experiences. And what is your perception of how are both these places different from one another?
Sure. See, honestly, I think it's been an age-old question on consulting versus industry. What is better? What are the pros and cons? And with the changing nature of roles, actually, I would say it's quite hard to give a overall answer as to say what works, what does not work. Coming to my role at Paytm, so I was leading few categories there, and I had the P&L ownership for them, which meant that I had a team of my own. I was looking at marketing, at product, at analytics as well. And one fundamental shift for me when moving from McKinsey to Paytm was the shift in mindset from being an advisor to actually being an implementer.
How hard was that
So
shift?
I would say it took like a couple of months. So in the first couple of months, I would come up with slides, come up with decks, and in the meetings when I was shot down as all this is fine, but how does it translate into something for us today, or what is it that we need to do this week, which is more important. So that mindset shift of moving from advising to actually doing things was the biggest one, I would say.
Got it. Okay. And when you say the mindset shift, right? Was it a forced mindset shift for you, which happened because you had no other option, or were there tools that helped you as well to enable that shift?
I think it was just part of the job, right? So if you are owning a P&L and if you're responsible for the metrics, at the end of the day, what really matters is whether you achieve those metrics or not. So strategy for it, I would say, is more like a one-time exercise which you do at the beginning. But after that, it's a lot more iterative process where you just implement things, see how the market is reacting to it, see how your customers are reacting to it, and just keep on changing and iterating and rolling it out. So I would say honestly, there were no fundamental tools to get into that role. It was more that it was a requirement of the job, and you just had to do it.
Got it. Any advantages or disadvantages you perceived while working at Paytm because of your prior experience in consulting?
Okay, I would say actually a lot.
Okay.
And it I think probably boils down to what consulting teaches you, especially in the early years of your journey, right? So fresh out of university, if you join consulting, you straight away get exposure to very senior leaders,
Hmm.
both within the organization and outside, and it exposes you to how business leaders essentially think and take decisions. So things like first principles problem solving, things like communication, things like structuring and thinking through your points. All of them are like truly helpful if you are able to build them in the initial years of your professional career. And that also helped me in Paytm. So, whenever we were looking at a problem to solve, say user retention, my first instinct was actually to just break that problem into three or four different parts and then look at all of those parts individually and then come to a solution instead of just going after one hypothesis and just iterating. And that really helps you choose the right parts to focus on. So I would say that was just one big clear differentiator coming from consulting to an industry role.
Would you agree with this if I say this, that hey, if in any industry you take folks with 4 to 5 years experience, right? Probably they have a lot more industry knowledge because they are spending time in the same industry. but these basic problem solving skills are non-existent. Would you agree with that?
I think that's
I'm
a bit of
taking
a
it to the
blunt way to
extreme.
put it.
I'm taking it to the extreme, but would you agree with that?
So I'll say, yes, I partially do agree with what you said. I'll maybe just reframe it a bit. So I think the functional skills, uh, people who spend time in industry, they are much better at the functional skills, wherein, it comes to, say, leveraging Google tools, analytics, digital marketing, performance marketing. So knowledge of all those tools, all the skill set is much richer with people who have been in the industry and who have done that. But when it comes to soft skills, which is, actually doing that problem solving, prioritizing what is important, figuring out how you should communicate it to senior leadership, I think on those parameters, someone who would have spent 4 or 5 years in consulting would definitely be way ahead.
Well, see, you have 6 years, 7 years experience. I have 15 years
Yeah.
experience, and I believe that which one will give you more salary going forward, let's say 10 years down the line. I believe it is the problem solving, how you communicate with others, because end of the day, in 2 years' time, there will be another fresher who will be coming up and who will say, I know all these tools,
Yeah.
right? So that functional, okay, I don't mean to demean and say that, hey, functional expertise is easy to get. It is not easy to get, but end of the day, which
Right.
one will give you more salary? Let's be super practical, right? I believe the later will give more salary. What do you think?
It's honestly hard to say. So I would say, and maybe it's not really a salary
Let's
question.
let's let's
I would
apply
say
80-20. Let's apply 80-20 and
so. I would say just from building a career resilience standpoint, right? So with a
yeah.
lot of these AI tools which are coming up, Chat GPT, a lot of these things, can now be done quite easily, wherein you don't need that functional experience. So from building a career resilience standpoint, I do feel soft skills would be much more important, because just figuring out 10 different data points, establishing a pattern between them, and then choosing where to go after, that in my mind at least is a much bigger skill to have in the coming years than just having a deeper knowledge of one software.
Okay, so we need to make caveat here. One thing, both of us have been in consulting, so probably we have a little more insight into how consulting works a lot more. But what you also have worked in the industry, so what is the cultural difference between both these places, industry versus consulting?
So I would say, as I said, right. So one of the biggest shift is between being an advisor versus being a doer. So people in industry typically would focus a lot more on implementation, and which has its pros and cons. So it helps you keep rolling the ball and moving forward, but at times it also restricts your thinking. Doing pure blue sky thinking for new product launches, new ideas, that's where a lot of companies struggle, especially if they have been in the same role, doing the same thing for years. In consulting, again, on the flip side, people would be great at coming with theoretical ideas, with blue sky thinking on, coming up with new patterns, coming up with new opportunities, but they would also falter to figure out what are the pitfalls in the way. So, there'll be a very good high level work plan which can be created, but actually doing it on the ground would feature a lot more challenges, which I would say a lot of consultants underestimate at that stage.
That's their job, right? Their job is to give focus on efficiencies and ideal solutions, right? That, and
In a way,
you need
yes.
to work towards that. You need to work towards that, right? Because that's the reason why consultants are brought into the picture. To work
Correct.
towards
So
the
I
best
think
possible
that's
solution.
that's one big value add, right, which consultant typically gives, is that they give you an outside perspective, because when you have been doing the same thing day in day out, it sort of restricts the way you think, right? And at that point in time, if someone can just come from outside, look at your overall business, look at the market, and then tell you that, okay, by the way, there are these additional three things which you might consider, and that is enough of a thought starter at times for people. So it's not like they could not have thought of those ideas or they did not have those ideas. Just, I would say, pushing that conversation to that level is a great value which consulting firms bring.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, Ankur. So now let's talk about your uh, experience or your thoughts on work-life balance. Okay.